you can train in that. I did a lot of my instrument time in there. It's very good to kind of put in scenarios that you wouldn't see in the real world, and make it a safe environment for that to happen. And then you do all your flight training with the local flight schools, More Aviation, ACES, High Flight, all of them.
Tom, what are your thoughts about that? He mentioned at age 19, he's already ready, well on his way and everything. What do you think this means for CCBC and Beaver County to have a program like this?
Yeah, see, I think that's wonderful. I've heard about the academy before, and for the Community College of Beaver County to be able to enlist interested folks while you're still in high school, start getting your training, start, getting college credits. You mentioned Southern Illinois University. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you enter the aviation program at Community College of Beaver County, that's a 2-year program, and you come out with like an associate's degree. I guess that's what it's still called, and back in my day it was. But what Southern Illinois University does by partnering with CCBC is allows people to continue on it and get a 4-year bachelor's degree. Is that correct?
That is correct, yep.
So, and is that a pretty popular option for people at CCBC?
Yeah, so that's the most popular option that many people go through. They're also partnering with more colleges now to get that bachelor's degree. And what that bachelor's degree does for us as pilots, you have to have 1,500 hours to get into the airlines, but with that bachelor's degree, it brings it down to 1,000 hours of flight training time.
And so will the CCBC Aeronautical Society, will you have like an informational tent at the Fly and Drive Fest? Will you be like meeting for, maybe students or parents who are interested in learning more? And what will that look like? Yeah,
we'll have a table. We'll have some of our members at that table. We'll be there. Come talk to us and learn more about what our club does. And even CCBC Aviation Academy will probably have their table there too, so you can also talk to them too.
So I have a couple questions actually too. So when you go through the 2-year program at CCBC, what percentage of time is classroom? What percentage of time is actually in an airplane? Ballpark it.
Typically for the classroom wise, you're looking probably, what would you say?
Say 15 hours a week.
15 hours a week for the classes part. And then for flying wise, it depends on weather kind of flying. But for the different ratings we have to have, like our private pilots rating, you have to have 40 hours minimum to be able to qualify to take that check ride for that rating.
Yeah, and what I've learned over the years being involved out there at the Aviation Museum is there's all these different like certifications that pilots have to have, and I don't even know what they all are, but whether you're going to fly solo, like our C-47 is what they call a tail dragger. There's multi-engine ratings and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. Does the Community College of Beaver County, I would think they have a lot of networking where they can help graduating students connect with airlines. I don't know if you know Ella, one of our volunteers out there, she got a job with one of the airlines. I think it was Republic, but I'm not sure, and stuff like that. And then a lot of times too, I would think that when you go into this profession that you guys are in, right, and you're getting ready to graduate, that there's probably opportunities around the country, right? I mean, so like if you say, hey, I'd like to fly for Hawaii Airlines, I wouldn't. I wouldn't mind flying for them. Now, Alaska Airlines, I'm not sure I'd want to be doing that. But so the Community College of Beaver County actually helps you network and connecting with employers. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's good to also note that our professors are all really seasoned. Like they have 50-plus years. We have veterans who served in the Air Force. We have people who served in the airlines. So they come from extensive backgrounds. And what that does is that offers us words of advice from them, and they've been in the industry for such a long time that the experience they give us is wisdom that's really hard to find anywhere else, especially in such a close-knit community as the aviation community.
Do you have career goals, or when you look in your crystal ball, can you see what you would like to be flying or what you'd like to be doing, say 5, 6, 7 years from now?
Yeah, so for me personally, I would want to be flying somewhere in the airlines. In about 5 years, I would hope to be transitioning to a major, because you have to start at a regional airline level, and then eventually you'll go to one of the flag carriers you see everywhere around. If that doesn't work out, though, I'm always open to go cargo and maybe even military. But I'll hand it over to Luke.
So I'm interested to hear what Luke's aspirations are, given that his family's involved in aviation, right?
Yeah, so I'd say about the same thing. First start out a regional airline and then transition to one of the major airlines. Goal would be international flying, be able to see everything around the world. It would be pretty cool to do that.
How does that work, Art? I really don't know much about aviation. I know about the museum, but like when you get on with a major airline that flies international and stuff like that, we'll take American or Delta or something like that, United. So are those international routes? And I've got a lot of people out at the museum are retired. By the way, to my knowledge, they must retire at age 65. Mm-hmm. Age 60, like one day they can fly you to Europe, and the next day they're not allowed to fly anymore. But are those the most sought after routes, the international routes? Because, and we have one of our board members actually flies for Atlas Airlines. Mm-hmm. Atlas Airlines is a major cargo carrier. They have the largest fleet of 747s in the world, which they just put the last 747 that was in production off the line last year, and Atlas took that. They made a big deal about it because they're not making them anymore. Mm-hmm. But he flies around the world, and it's my understanding, whatever you fly to China, and 13 hours or whatever it takes, and then it's just like a CDL driver. You can only work so much in a certain period of time, right?
Right.
So are those usually the most sought after things, the international routes, or? I think that would be tough. Didn't you go down to Australia or something?
Yeah,
Scott,
that was a 14-hour flight. And
I have a cousin lives down in Melbourne, and a long flight, and then you're crossing the equator, you're crossing the international timeline. Talk about like jet lag or pro lag, whatever you want to call it. But I would think, Luke, when you're flying international, that's one of the things you got to deal with, right?
Yeah. So I think it's very opinion-based. Some people don't want to be on those longer flights, those 8 to 13-hour flights. Some people just want to do some short hops from Pittsburgh to Atlanta, things like that. And then it's also hard on the body too, transitioning those time zones that often.
I would think.
Using that sleep.
I would think. I just heard a thing on the news this morning about, and I'm never involved with politics. I'm just telling you a fact. They're talking about whether we're going to bomb this nuclear site in Iran. It relates to aviation, right? So the B-2 bombers, the B-2s are those black ones that can't be detected by radar and stuff. They're actually housed in Missouri. We don't house those valuable planes in other countries. So they would need to go, and they'd have to do in-air refueling, and for those, and they'd have to have multiple pilots. It'd be a 30-hour round trip from the time they take off until the time that blew my mind. Like, I've done long trips down to Australia and stuff, and I love to be on airplanes, right? But I'm going to tell you, after hour 5 or so, I start getting like, okay, because the seating, especially for me, it's usually kind of tight and stuff like that. I can remember years ago, you'd get to the airport maybe 2-3 hours early and say, hey, I'm a big guy, I'd like an exit row seat. My approach, my understanding now is whoever pays for the exit row seat first, that's who's sitting there. I look and see some people and think, I'm not sure they could get themselves out of the plane, but let alone me. But right. Those. I was curious about that with those long flights and stuff. So yeah, I bet you there's a lot of different personal preference, because I know, talking to the retired pilots, that they do these things where they'll fly back and forth, like whatever, from here to Miami, like 3 times a day or something like that. He's like back and forth and back and forth. So.
All right. So with the last few minutes we have, because there was a glitch on the Facebook stream for some reason, but it seems like it's working okay now. Let's do a little bit of a recap about this event we announced today, which is a drive and fly event. It's going to happen on September 13th. Somebody, I don't know who wants to recap it and tell us everything, but go through it all.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, so like he said, it's going to be September 13th, starting at 10 a.m. We'll be expecting airplanes around 8 a.m., vintage cars, 9 a.m., but we know they'll be lining up. There'll be food trucks, there'll be live music provided by the Beaver County Radio, and not only is it great for the community and for the little kids as well, because we started our club to inspire our generation, but if we can inspire the next generation as well, that's a beautiful thing. And so not only will we have that, but it's also fun for the pilots as well, because we've been to multiple fly-ins before, and they're a whole lot of fun, but rarely do you get to fly in with tons of food options and vintage cars and a great museum, Air Heritage Aviation Museum as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we're praying for some good sunshine, good weather, and if you can, make it out.
All right.
Is there an admission charge? Is this free or? Yeah.
It's a free
All
event,
free.
Yeah.
Well,
Somebody
we'll
wants-
take donations.
Someone wants to get more information. How can they do that?
Yeah, I'd say this. The easiest way probably is through the Air Heritage Aviation Museum Facebook page,
Okay.
which my wife Judith runs. So or anybody's interested in being a sponsor at this point, because we're just putting this all together, if there's people listening with a food truck and you're interested, get in touch via the Air Heritage Aviation Museum Facebook page would probably be the easiest way. And if it's questions about the fly-in part, I'll relay it to these gentlemen.
All right, and then maybe get a little closer event. You guys want to come back in?
We'd love to come back again if you'll have us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love
So-
to come back in, especially once we have some sponsors in hand, and we'd like to let everybody know
Absolutely.
who's supporting us.
All right, we'll talk about it. So
I feel like I'm in good hands. Getting to meet Luke and Nathan here. I feel like the aviation industry's. We're in good hands with you guys. Once you're in, I'm gonna feel confident to fly again
Yeah, I agree.
in a few years.
all right, coming up next, Mike Roma, live Mike. He has got
Bishop Zubik.
Larry Kelly,
Retired
Bishop Zubik,
Bishop.
and Jimmy Ross. So stick around.
And I
More to come.
understand Jimmy Ross will be talking about the late Lou Christie. We just found out
Absolutely.
yesterday. Beaver Valley chart topper, known for songs like Lightning Strikes and Rhapsody in the Rain, passed away at 82. And Jimmy shared some stages with him and we'll have some really interesting insights. So looking forward to that.
All right, brother. I'll
And
see
tomorrow,
you
you and I are back on. We'll be doing our Backyard Beaver County, playing
Yep.
local music, and then we have Mayor
Beaver County
Val
Boom.
from New Brighton.
Mayor Val, Beaver County Boom, and Gary Burke. Is he still joining us tomorrow? Or
He's
is
going to
he
be
switching?
calling in. He's
Okay.
doing he's part of the Big Butler Fair, and he's also doing a benefit concert for first responders. He's doing various concerts throughout
All right.
the Western Pennsylvania area. So
We got a packed day tomorrow.
we do.
All right, brother.
All
See you
right.
tomorrow.
Good talking to you.
All right.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls.